Hi, students. This video is to introduce you to your Essay 3 assignment. Your Essay 3 is your research essay, and we're going to be working on it for the next month. And this video is to just get you started on it. So I'm going to open up the assignment. For your third paper for this class, you're going to research and write about a topic related to our class theme of our multicultural selves. For this essay, you were required to do outside research, which should include, at a minimum, at least six, outside sources which have been found through the GCC library, such as through subscription databases. And at least one of your sources should be a primary source. So I'm going to do a whole separate video on how to use the databases through the library website. But the most important thing to keep in mind is that doing a Google search is not doing real research. So we all do Google searches. You might, I Google all the time, best mechanic in my zip code or whatever. Or even, what year was Abraham Lincoln elected, for common knowledge things, a Google search is fine. But when you are doing research on a topic that may be controversial or complex, a Google search is not so reliable. A few years ago, if you Googled Dr. Martin Luther King, you would end up at a white supremacist website. Some white supremacist group had made up this very legitimate looking website, and it had a lot of misinformation about Martin Luther King. And so when you are doing research on a complex topic, a Google search can lead you astray. The internet is sort of the wild, wild west. You may be able to find some good information by doing a Google search, but you may also find a lot of really bad information. So when you're starting research for a paper like this one, or for, where it's really important to get your facts straight, you want to go into a database. A database is a collection of sources that have been published, which means they've gone through some kind of editorial process. The facts in them have been checked. And I'll talk about that a little bit more in the database video. But for now, I just want to talk to you a little bit about some possible topics. I should mention before I go on that at least one of your sources should be a primary source. That means a first-person account of whatever you're writing about. So we'll touch on that more in the database video probably, and as I go through these topics. So what you research for this paper and what you write about can be anything related to our class theme of our multicultural selves. It could be about code switching, it could be about language. If you have a specific topic you want to write about, that's great. Just email me what you think you want to write about so that I can kind of approve it and make sure you're on the right track. Or you and I could meet and just have a conversation, and we could, you could tell me what you're interested in, and I could help you figure out a topic that might work for this paper. However, what I often find is students want a list of suggested topics. So that's what I've made here. So the first suggested topic is recent research suggests that children who are raised speaking more than one language have cognitive brain-related advantages over children who only speak one language. Research and write about how speaking more than one language affects children's brains. You might also write about how this research should inform educators about how they should support students who speak more than one language. So a lot of what we've thought and written about in this class so far is people like many of you who are bicultural or multicultural. Some of you were born in another country or have parents who were, you speak two, sometimes three or four other languages. So it might be interesting for you to write about what the research shows about what the advantages are for children's brains of growing up that way, bilingual. So that could be something to write about. And you might also think about the whole debate about, how welcomed children's other languages should be at school and how that research should inform that. So we read about Gloria Anzaldúa, who wasn't allowed to speak Spanish at school. You might refer to her experience as you look at this research. Another thing I was thinking about that might be interesting to write about in terms of multiculturalism is the hijab. Many Muslim women have strong feelings about wearing a headscarf, a hijab. Some see wearing a headscarf as a sign of submission to men, but some see wearing one as a sign of female empowerment. Research and write about the different views among Muslim women about wearing the headscarf. I also thought of a couple other aspects of this topic. You could write about all three of these aspects, or you could pick one, totally up to you. You could write about the way women might code switch with a hijab. I think there are women who wear a hijab in some situations, but not others. Maybe they might wear it at home or grocery shopping, but they might not wear it to a job interview. And also, some women might, for example, not wear a hijab to an airport because maybe they feel like they would be targeted by security or something, because of stereotypes about Muslims that are unfortunately still an issue in this country. So you could write about how the hijab has made some women targets of racism and discrimination. There are a lot of different things you could write about in terms of that. Another thing I was thinking about was the case of Trayvon Martin, when he was African-American and he was killed by a Neighborhood Watch volunteer in 2012. And when that happened, some commentators said that Martin should not have been wearing a hoodie because it made him look suspicious. Many, though, were outraged by the suggestion that young Black men have to dress a special way to stay safe. Protesters even organized a Million Hoodie March to make the point. Research and write about the debate over the hoodie that emerged after Martin's death and how it relates to code switching and/or racism. I was also thinking about immigrant families, like the one we read about in Funny and Farsi. Some families which immigrate to America from other countries face special challenges. Parents who have a different home culture from their children sometimes promote values or customs that seem unreasonable to their children who may have been born here and feel a closer connection to American culture than to their parents' home culture. Research and write about the tensions that can emerge in families when parents were raised in a different culture than their children and how families might deal with that. You might also write about the strengths of those families and the benefits of their bicultural status. So that could be, you could also, again, relate that to the topic of bilingualism. A lot of you wrote about and discussed in our discussion boards being a translator for some of the members of your family, and might be interesting to read about what was difficult about that, but also what the research says about how that might have been good for your brain if you were doing all that switching between different languages. Not to mention the kind of code switching you might have done, switching from home to school or to other situations. So lots of potential topics in there. These are just ideas. Another topic I thought about was African-American hair. For many African-Americans, and maybe in particular African-American women, decisions about how to style their hair are complex. Often, straightening African-American hair is seen as a type of code switching, while letting their hair be natural is seen as a refusal to code switch. This issue was discussed much when Michelle Obama was First Lady. Research and write about the ways African Americans' decisions about their hair can be complex. If you wish, you could simply write about the decisions Michelle Obama made about her hair when First Lady and how they were seen as important by both her supporters and detractors. There's a ton of stuff written about Michelle Obama's hair when she was First Lady. So you could probably write an entire paper about that. I think the comedian Chris Rock also did a documentary about Black hair. There's a lot written about it. There's a lot written about how some African Americans really code switch with their hair, their decisions about their hair. It's a very complex topic, and there's probably a lot to write about there. If you have another topic in mind related to our multicultural selves, just discuss it with me and you can probably research that topic. All right, so this is your first step. Your first step is to think about some topics that interest you, go into the database and start exploring. And you should explore probably 2 or 3 different topics and then see what you're finding in the database and what looks interesting to you. And I can tell you how to do that in the database video. So your first step is to explore and read and learn about the topic. And that's all you're going to be doing for the next week and a half. Just, learn about the topic, learn what's interesting to you about the topic, try to focus the topic. This is a 6 to 8 page paper. So you have to think of a topic that's a good size for 6 to 8 pages. And then once you've learned about the topic, you are eventually going to shape this into an essay. And I'm going to have some videos about how to do that too. When you shape it into an essay, you will again have an introduction, distinct supporting sections, a concluding section, and a works cited page. And I'll guide you through all of that. The other thing you need to keep in mind about this assignment that's really important is your grade on this assignment is not just based on the final paper you turn in. It is based on many preliminary steps you take leading up to that final paper. So I think there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 pieces of your grade on essay 3. And the first one is due Sunday. That's going to be, you're going to spend this week exploring on the databases, learning about your topic. You're going to come up with 6 tentative sources on your topic, and you're going to put them in the format of a works cited page. You can change those sources later, but you need to just propose 6 by Sunday. That's 5% of your grade on this essay. The following Tuesday, you're going to write an annotated bibliography. I'll make a video about that. That's 5%. And you're going to do a free write and a list of everything a list of everything you've learned about your topic by that Tuesday. That's another 5%. Annotated bib is 5%, free write and list is 5%. You're going to have an outline of your essay, a tentative outline of your essay due on Sunday, November 28th. Then you're going to have just 2 pages of your rough draft due on Wednesday, December 1st. Then you're going to have a complete rough draft due on Sunday, December 5th, and that'll be 15% of your grade. And then your final draft is due on Wednesday, December 15th, and that is 60% of your grade on this essay. This paper should be 6 to 8 pages long, not including the works cited page. So it's really important to understand you have to do all these preliminary steps by the due dates in order to succeed on this essay. You can't just turn in your final draft on Wednesday, December 15th, because at that point, the highest grade then you will be able to get on the whole paper is a 60. So if you've got zeros on everything else. So keep that in mind. Notice there's a grading rubric here, which you should use as a checklist. I also just want to jump back and say just a little bit more about primary sources. As I said in the beginning of this video, a primary source, you're required to have at least one primary source. For this essay, a primary source is a first person account, an I account. So for example, if you were writing about bilingualism, you might interview somebody who grew up speaking 2 languages, or find a article through a database on somebody talking about speaking more than 1 language and what that was like growing up. You might find an interview with Michelle Obama about her hair. I think there really are interviews in which she talks about her hair because she knows it's a big topic for a lot of African Americans. You could, there's unfortunately, first person accounts of what happened to Trayvon Martin by the man who killed him, and also by a friend of Trayvon Martin's who was on the phone with him when it happened. There are also first person accounts of people who protested, who went to the Million Hoodie March. So you could quote some of them. Any of those would be a primary source. Finding an article about somebody growing up in an immigrant family in which they talk about their experience, that would be a primary source. So that's what I mean by primary sources. So that's your introduction to this assignment. I know it can feel incredibly overwhelming at first, but I just want to remind you, we are going to spend a month working on this paper. You won't have any additional reading beyond the reading you're doing for your research. I'm going to be here to help you every step of the way. My main piece of advice to you is to try not to think of the whole thing at once, but just keep focusing on the first step, the second step, the third step. If you just focus on one step at a time, like this week, your first step is to learn how to use a database, go exploring on the database, find 6 possible sources, put them in the form of a works cited page and get that in. Then next week, you can worry about the next step, which is the annotated bibliography. There will be a video on how to use the database that will show you how to start exploring on it. There will be a video on how to set up your works cited page and do that. There will be a video on how to do an annotated bibliography. There will be a video on how to get started on your outline, all of that. So just take it one step at a time. Don't worry about the next 10 steps or 6 steps or whatever it is. Just worry on, just focus on the next step you have to take. And if you do that and you do every step as thoroughly as possible, you will get it done and you will do well on it. Let me know if you have any questions. And yeah, I think that's it for now.